Hey folks, have you ever thought about where democracy really comes from? We often think of ancient Athens as the birthplace of democracy, where freedom, voting, and equality all took root. The Parthenon, towering high and majestic, almost screams democratic values. And guess what? World leaders still love snapping pics there to show off their democratic bona fides. But here's a plot twist for you. One of the coolest brains from ancient Greece, Socrates, is actually super suspicious of democracy. Yeah, the guy who basically kick-started Western philosophy had serious doubts about letting just anyone vote. Intrigued? You should be. Stick around as we dive into Socrates' big beef with democracy and why his warnings still slap hard in today's political scene. Socrates, the original democracy skeptic. Most folks just hear Socrates and think deep questions, cool dialogues with Plato, or that he drank poison hemlock for his beliefs. But underneath that image was a guy who thought democracy might be a bit of a hot mess. Socrates wasn't saying, nah, only nobles should vote. Not at all. Instead, he argued everyone voting willy-nilly without knowing the nitty-gritty was like trusting complete rookies to captain a ship through a violent storm. That's the analogy he uses in Plato's Republic, a conversation between Socrates and his buddy Adeimantus. Imagine you're about to sail a ship. Who do you want in charge? Some random deckhand or a seasoned sailor who knows every wave and wind change? Obviously, the skilled sailor, right? So why do we believe anyone can pick leaders for a country without the right knowledge or training? That's the question Socrates throws right in our face. Voting, a skill that needs to be learned. Here's the kicker. Socrates believed that voting isn't just some gut feeling or herd mentality. Voting is a real skill. Like riding a bike or playing a video game, it requires practice, education, and serious understanding. In ancient Athens, citizens voted directly on policies and rulers. But Socrates saw this as dangerous because most people lacked the wisdom to judge complex matters. Throwing voting power at an uneducated crowd was, in his view, as reckless as letting an amateur steer a trireme into a storm near Samos. So, what happened? Well, Socrates got first-hand look at democracy's darker side. In 399 BC, accused unfairly of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, he was put on trial. A jury of 500 Athens citizens decided by a narrow margin that he was guilty. And just like that, he drank the hemlock. But was Socrates an elitist? Now, you might think Socrates was just an old-school snob wanting to keep power in the hands of a few, but actually, he was pretty different. He didn't say only rich folks or aristocrats should vote. Instead, he pushed the idea that only those who seriously thought through issues, who used reason and logic, should get to have a say. In today's terms, he wanted an intellectual democracy, not just a democracy by birthright or chance. Sadly, modern democracies often lost sight of this. Anyone and everyone got the vote, regardless of whether they have the tools to understand complicated issues. And we see what happens next, a system vulnerable to demagogues, slick talkers who promise you the moon but just want power for themselves. The danger of demagoguery. Athens' lesson. Socrates wasn't speaking out of thin air. Ancient Athens had bitter experience with demagogues, especially a guy named Alcibiades. This dude was rich, smooth, a serious charmer. But he pushed Athens into extremely risky military adventures, wrecking freedoms and trust along the way. Socrates imagined an election debate between two candidates, a doctor and a candy store owner. The doctor says, "I'm here to fix you, even if it means giving you some bitter medicine." The candy store owner says, "Forget that. I'll give you all the sweets and treats your heart desires." Guess who the voters cheer for? The candy man, hands down. That's why Socrates warned democracy without education is just asking for trouble.
Democracy's double-edged sword. So, where does that leave us? Democracy is still one of the best political ideas humanity has come up with, but it's not foolproof. It's only as strong as the education system that helps people understand what they're voting on. The next time someone gushes about democracy as the ultimate good, remember Socrates' caution. It's not just about having a vote, it's about having the wisdom to use it well. Why do you think Socrates compared democracy to a ship? Can you think of any modern examples where this analogy fits? Do you agree with Socrates that only educated people should vote? Why or why not? Who do you think are the doctors and candy shop owners in today's politics? How can modern democracies protect themselves from demagoguery without limiting voting rights? And what role does education play in making democracy work better? Feel free to drop your thoughts below. Let's get the conversation rolling.